Hello and welcome back to my Git and GitHub for Beginners tutorial series. In this video, I'll quickly explain what head is in Git. Now, if you remember from my last video, when I ran the command to view all my commits, the word head was found just before the commit message. In this screenshot here, head seems to be pointing to the login branch. To explain what head is, the head in Git is simply a pointer or a reference to the current branch that you are on. Every time you switch to a new branch, head will also point to that new branch instead. Remember when I talked about the .git folder and how .git is able to track our changes over time? Inside .git, there is also a file called head, and this file contains information to where head is pointing. Let's switch to my terminal to better explain this. Let's go inside the .git folder by typing in cd.git. If I then want to list all the files inside .git, I'm using the ls command and notice that there is a file called head. To view the contents of this file, we can use the cat command followed by the file name. Cat is a Linux command to view the contents of a file. If you're a Windows user, this is equivalent to the type command. So when this command is run, it simply returns the content of the head file, which is refs/heads/main. This is simply saying that head is currently referring to the main branch because this is the branch that is currently active. Now let's go back to the previous directory by typing cd space ... You don't have to do this every time you switch to a new branch, but if you're going to make changes into the files inside your mycool project, then you need to go back to the previous directory first. So I've created a new branch here, and if we then go inside the .git folder again and then view the contents of the head file again by using the cat command, you can see that the contents have changed and it's now pointing to branch A. So for now, think of head as a pointer to the current active branch. Head cannot point to two branches at the same time. Running Git commands in the terminal is a great way of learning it, but having some sort of visuals is always a great idea. There is a free tool that you can use out there to better visualize how the head pointer changes in Git. Visualizing it allows you to visualize common Git operations and see how it impacts your Git workflow. I'll add a link to the video description so you can also play with this tool in your personal time. So once you've navigated to the actual tool itself, you'll be presented with this commit in a graph visualization. To better explain how the head is simply a pointer, I'm going to add a new commit. Notice that the master branch is pointing to the latest commit, and in turn the head is still pointing to master branch. If I do another commit, the head pointer also moves forward. From this graph here, it's easy to be confused that head is pointing to the commit instead. Head, in some cases, can point to a commit, which I'll explain later on, but what's happening here is whenever a new commit is made to the master branch, head is just following the master branch. Now let's create a new branch by using git checkout. You can also use git switch, but this tool only supports git checkout for the time being. When I make a new commit on the new branch, head is now following the new branch rather than master. Let's go ahead and add another commit. When you want to switch back to the master branch, head is now pointing to master again. Head cannot reference multiple branches at the same time because we can only be in one active branch at a time. Let's create a new branch again called branch B and make a new commit. You can see that head is now following branch B. Basically, whenever you switch to a new branch and make some new commits, head follows you. Let's move on to another important concept. I've mentioned that head can also point to a specific commit. When this happens, we call it a detached head in Git. Remember from my previous video that git checkout can be used to switch to a new branch? Well, git checkout is like a Swiss Army knife in Git because it can also perform other actions. With git checkout, you can also check out the specific commits or even tags. This is the main reason why git switch was created because git checkout has a lot of use cases. But anyway, let's see what happens to head if we try to check out a specific commit rather than a branch. Now, let's imagine a scenario where in branch A, I want to go back to a previous commit and do some experimental changes. To do that, you can just use the same command git checkout, but instead of the branch, you have to provide the commit hash number. Notice that head is not pointing to any branches, but instead it's pointing to the specific commit instead. If you then, let's say, make additional commits when you're not on a specific branch, you are now in a state called a detached head. This means that this commit runs the risk of being lost because it's not linked to any branches. If, let's say, I want to go back to branch A, and if I want to go back to the experimental commit that I have just created before that, I would have to take note of the commit hash number for me to retrieve that commit. To get out of the detached head state, we just have to create and switch to a new branch. When this is done, you can see that head is not detached anymore as it is now pointing to a new branch. I hope that the Git visualizer tool was useful in explaining how the head pointer moves, but if not, I'll explain it again one more time using the local project that I have up and running. To start, let me just view my commit history. I can see that head is pointing to main branch. When I create and switch to a new branch and run git log again, head is now pointing to branch A. Now let's just make a small change and commit the changes to branch A. When you run git log again, you can see that the head is still pointing to branch A. I'm just going to make another small change here and commit the change. Now let's just imagine that I want to go back to my previous commit. To do that, let's copy the commit hash number and use the git checkout command. When that command is run, it's now telling us that we are in a detached head state. Notice as well that we are not in any branch. Instead, it's referencing the commit hash number instead. Now, if I make any more further changes, and I'll just commit it with the message experimental commit, and if I view my git log again, head is still pointing to the latest commit rather than a branch. If I then want to retain these commits in the future, I just need to create and switch to a new branch. Now we are back to a normal head state and head is now pointing to the new branch that I just created. And there you have it. In this video, I quickly explained what head is in Git and how you can be in a detached head state. If this is the first video that you've watched, make sure to check out my Git and GitHub for Beginners tutorial playlist. Thank you for watching and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you enjoy content like this.